Hello there, carpologists. I'm Joe, and today I'm joining Dan Bruton on the banks. Thanks for having me along. And today we're at Berners Hall Fishery. I've never been here before, but I understand fish is bossed out there again. This is the first time you've been here as well, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah. No, I don't very rarely fish day tickets. More sort of like, syndicate lakes and peaceful, quiet fishing. So yeah, it's just a bit different for me.
Now, you said the peaceful, quiet fishing with a bit of a smile. How was when you got here yesterday?
When I turned up yesterday, I was the 17th person. Probably, I don't know what we got, about 15 acres or something like that here. I think there were about 2 or 3 pegs left. So fortunately, there was nobody up this end, the windward end. There are fish about. They are doshing about. There's another one out there. So the guy next to me, he's doing quite well. He's in prime position really. And another one.
So location-wise, wasn't your choice yesterday, but with the weather conditions as they are now, it's kind of played into your hands a bit.
Kind of lucked out really, because like I say, there were people mainly down the other end, off of the wind, and the fish were quite clearly sort of piled up here. I fished last night. Unfortunately, didn't get a bite. I was fishing on the deck through the night, but I'm now fishing them all on zigs. It seems like the people that are getting amongst them are catching on the zigs. They're quite clearly up in the layers. Unfortunately, we've lost one today in the weed, but I'm feeling quite confident. I reckon we might get another little tug at some point.
So looking spot on for it.
It is looking very good. It's warm. It's in sort of the low 20s. It's pushing a quite a stiff sort of quite a stiff northerly. And do you know what? A lot of people sort of northerly winds, but this time of year you can't beat a northerly. In fact, I'd rather be on the end of a northerly than a southwesterly this time of year. So yeah, we're not right in pole position, but there are fish there. So hopefully,
straight opposite.
Another one.
So surely a bite is on the cards. There's a lot of fish here.
I'd like to hope so.
Depth-wise and things, what sort of zig depth have you gone for to start with?
I had a little plum yesterday, and it was about 11 foot out there. So I've started off with 10, 8 and 6 foot. And the 6 was the one that went, so I've now moved them all onto 6. So I'm going to keep doshing them around and see if we can get them to pick them up.
Well, they're certainly on the move. We've seen them close in, mid-water, on the other banks. So there's definitely a lot of fish
all
down
over, aren't they? Yeah. I think there's quite a few fish in here by all accounts. So there's a little bit of weed out there. There's like sort of patches here and there, sort of like onion weed. We know they like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
And going into this evening, obviously it might start cooling off. Are you going to stick with the zigs or play it by ear?
I think I'm certainly going to keep playing with them right up until probably last knock-ins, and then I can imagine that just because I just love fishing on the deck, I will more than likely put 1 or 2 back there where I've got bait, just because that's what I prefer to do really. But can't ignore the zigs today. They're quite clearly up in the layers, so that's what you've got to do.
You were telling me earlier that zig fishing isn't your go-to method, so normally you're fishing on the bottom. What sort of rigs, tactics, baiting sort of applications do you go for normally?
I do like fishing multi-rigs. They reset. The hooking potential is obviously awesome. It's just one of them rigs. It's just a go-to. I just never seem to fail. You can sit them down low. You can have them up higher. You can fish over anything on a helicopter setup. I don't really think there are many sort of rigs that can beat that really. I mean, you've got chods, bits and pieces, but I just think it's got so much more movement on a multi. So I'll tend to fish them 99% of the time.
And what about bait application, sort of?
I get very limited time, so I'm not really one to sort of like heavily bait. If obviously they really want it, then I'll give it to them, or if I'm pre-baiting or whatever, then let them have it. But no, generally, I like fishing sort of bits and pieces. Enough just the sort of waters I fish, just to kind of really close.
That's where one was just putting the cameras on as well.
Just to nick a bite. I'm not like I say, I'm fishing quite difficult waters, and you're not looking to catch sort of like 4, 5, 6 fish. I mean, obviously if you do, great, but generally you're fishing for a bite at a time. So yeah, just a small amount of bait in the right spot really.
Sounds good. So weather conditions, as we said, are beautiful. It's enjoyable just being here, but fish or two would be spot on. So I'm sure you'll have something, but we'll check back later on this evening, see what you're up to then.
Yeah.
What sort of tactics you're doing, what you're changing, and
Okay.
hopefully it pays off.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, Dan, it's been a bit of a frustrating afternoon, really, hasn't it? We've had glorious weather and wind's been pushing in here, fish galore. What's happening?
There's been a lot of fish showing. Do you know, I haven't got a clue, to be honest. I'm not really much of a zig angler myself. I don't do a lot of it. Not that I'm going to make any excuses.
Of course not.
But my marker is the guy next to me who is right on the money, and his bites have really dried up. So
and he was catching consistently.
he was catching consistently.
They were coming out.
Where the wind has been sort of hammering that bank, is, you know, it's been pushing all of the clay out, and they've just been there. He's been doing really well, but I don't think he's caught one for probably 3 or 4 hours.
And even the shows have dried up a bit. I mean, we were seeing at least 1 or 2 shows a minute. It was pretty mad earlier.
I think they've pushed out. I think the wind might have been a little bit too much for them at times. I think they might have just like edged out a little bit. I've been consistently sort of like spomming sort of like a little bit of sloppy mix, you know, over the zigs. But you know, since that one bite, we've not had any action at all. But
so what's your plan moving forward? Are you sticking with the zigs or chopping and changing?
No, I think I'm going to go back on the deck tonight. You know, temperature's going to sort of drop down. I think maybe even sort of like 4 or 5 degrees early hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been consistently sort of putting bait into an area. It's actually quite weedy here. You have to go sort of like, you know, sort of up to sort of 50 yards out to miss it.
Yeah.
So no, I'm going to go back on that. I'm going to put 2 rods back out where I was fishing last night. I might do something a little bit different, maybe close in, have a rod close in tonight. I've seen various fish sort of like skirting up and down the margins, so I think it'll be worth doing something a little bit, you know, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
I've seen today you have been putting like just a little bit, not too much to sort of kill the swim, but just enough to try and pick up a bite or something this evening, or?
Yeah, not sort of going overly mad with the bait. I've flicked out a few boilies in the throwing stick just in the general area, and I've had a bit of a sort of a sloppy mix. It's been, you know, I've got like pellet.
Mm-hmm.
This one just rolled there. Pellet, a bit of hemp, a little bit of corn, and then crushing up the black seal, and adding salmon oil, just to give it a little bit of, you know, a little bit of pulling power. So you don't need tons of it. Just, you know, I'm not spanking fish, so I'm just looking for a bite really. So we'll, yeah, see what happens.
And tactic-wise, you switch, you know, what sort of rigs you go to?
My go-to is, you know, generally a multi-rig. There is a bit of weed out there. They reset perfectly. You know, the nice sharp hook, and yeah, it's just I've just got so much confidence in that setup, you know. So I'll go back to that tonight, and you know, and see what happens.
Well, it's a lovely evening to enjoy the rest of the day. So hopefully, a fish will come out and say hello. But if not, we'll see you in the morning, hopefully with some wet nets.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, morning, Dan. And
morning.
who turned the heating off? Is
Yeah.
what I want to ask. It's absolutely freezing this morning. Yesterday we were getting burnt. This morning it's almost like we needed thermals and all sorts. But
It's like we've rolled back to February.
it does indeed.
Yeah.
But you had one this morning, so obviously your tactics changed and paid off. So what exactly was it you did in the end?
Well, I mean, throughout the day I've been, you know, putting spoms of sort of sloppy mix out onto the spots I fished on my first night. And I topped it up again last night, and you know, with the way the weather was going, I did want to fish on the bottom. I'm most comfortable doing that anyway. And yeah, it was sort of like first light this morning, middle rods rattled off, and a nice sort of like mid-double common. So it's turned it from a camping video into a fishing video, which is nice.
Yeah, so on what seemed to be ideal conditions, they just weren't playing ball yesterday. It was just the way fishing goes, isn't it? They could show it like mad, but then obviously when the temperature dropped off, one of them got their head down.
Yeah.
There's still every chance for a bite this morning. I mean, it's looking pretty good for it, isn't it?
Yeah, I must admit, I wouldn't be surprised if another one went. You know, and sit on my hands for a bit, and you know, I've had a little top up of bait this morning, just reset them, got them perfect. I have seen a couple in the area. You know, the way the temperature is, I should imagine they're not far off the deck now. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, we've got to make a move very shortly, but it's been very enjoyable being with you. I'm sure if you have anything else, you'll let us know.
I certainly
nice
will
to meet
do.
you anyway.
And you, thanks
Sure,
very
see you
much.
again soon.
No problem.